welcome back to another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast. Today we have Michael LiRosi, the defensive back coach at Cleveland High School in New Mexico. Coach, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks, Coach. I appreciate you having me on.
No problem, Coach. No problem. Before we get started, so Coach, kind of get to know you. I know you've recently done a Chief Pigskin clinic, so if coaches want to check that out, you, go check out Chief Pigskin's website. Coach is on there. But besides that, do you want to kind of give a little bit of background how you ended up as a DB coach at Cleveland?
Of course. So, funny story, I actually played football at Cleveland High School. I graduated in 2012. We won the state championship there in 2011, my senior year. And I think that's when, I've always loved football, but seeing us come together as a team and watching my coaches, create this culture that we had, ever since that, I've been trying to get back to it. So I went to college for 2 years. I didn't play football. I went down to New Mexico State, graduated from there. But my junior year, I started coaching at a local school in Las Cruces, Centennial High School. And I started coaching. Luckily, I got a varsity position right away. I didn't have to start off as a freshman coach. I was willing to do it, but it worked out that he was an Albuquerque coach and he moved down there. So we had some familiarity with each other. Started coaching varsity football as a junior in college and started coaching and fell in love with it. At that time, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I was getting a business degree. I was going to do the 9-to-5 thing and started coaching, fell in love with it, fell in love with being around the coaches, being around the kids. So graduated from New Mexico State, came back to Cleveland High School, got on staff with Coach Ridenauer, who was the offensive coordinator at the time when I was playing. Hired me on as a freshman coach, worked my way up the next year as a varsity coach, and been coaching the secondary there for the last 5 years. Coach Ridenauer is awesome, best coach I've ever been around, best coach in the state of New Mexico, and if you were to branch out to other states, he might be the best coach there too. So he's an awesome guy to work for, intelligent, great job of building a culture, and it's been awesome to work for him. So.
Awesome, Coach. Well, I appreciate you coming on. We're going to talk a little cornerback play in quarters a day with Coach. But for you guys, what is quarters and kind of why do you run it?
So we were a kind of like a man match cover 2 team. We used to press the corners and play deep halves with the safeties. And we were getting attacked, and I actually have a slideshow that I'll pull up here in a second. I'll show the ways that we were getting attacked in recent years with the deep half safeties. There's just way too much cushion. Teams they love to attack the hash, especially when you're playing that defense. But regardless, that's the easiest throw in football, and we were just giving it away. So we were playing that. We kind of self-evaluated, saw a lot of quarter stuff. I think Cody Alexander, really was the one. I kind of researched all his stuff a few years back. And I was like, we need to be doing this. I always knew what quarters was, but that's just not what we did at the time at Cleveland. The defensive coordinator, we were a cover 2 team, and that's what we did. So started doing a little bit of quarters here and there, but really bought into it. And our playoff run in 2019, COVID kind of messed up all my seasons, but 2019, we started playing a lot of quarters throughout the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it was awesome for us. It fit more of what our players' strengths were. I thought it was easier to teach. And we ended up winning the state championship that year. And I think that played a huge part in it, being able to play quarters. So then we bought into it. We didn't get to play in 2020. We played our spring season, and we were a base quarters coverage team. And it was awesome. We won state again this year. So we went back-to-back. Our program, we've been able to win 4 state championships in the last 10 years. So we've been pretty successful. It's a lot because of the players, It really, the scheme, it really falls. Our players are great kids and they play really hard. But to me, quarters, there's a debate on what it is. To me, it's an umbrella. And there's multiple coverages within the quarter scheme. So you got your traditional, corners and safeties playing their mod coverage, man on demand. But then there's some little intricacies that you could do to kind of mess around with it. But to me, if the number 1 receiver is going vertical, the corner has them. If the number 2 receiver is going vertical, the safety has them. To me, that's quarters. Okay, probably the easiest way to break it down. So I like to cap vertical routes. That's like one of my biggest things is don't get out leveraged, don't get outnumbered, and let's cap verticals as much as we can. And so to me, that's what quarters coverage is.
Now, you mentioned Cody Alexander, who I've had on here before.
Yeah, he's the best.
He's smart as crap. But outside of Cody, is there any other spots you kind of researched when you were looking at your quarter stuff? Any other, whether it be film or notes or clinic speaking? Like obviously Cody's kind of like the top guy to go to. I mean, he's got some great books that people can use to research. But anywhere else?
For him, I think he was the only one that had it out that was accessible to everybody. You know, I was 20 years old trying to learn this coverage.
Yeah.
And he was the first guy that I was able to find. I love what TCU does. You know, Coach Vass had a podcast on with their DB's coach. I think it was the safety or corners coach. Listen to that. That was awesome. Coach Williams from Abilene Christian University, their safeties coach, he's a huge help for me. So these are my guys. These are the guys that I've reached out to and been great to me. So Coach Mike Ridings, he's the DC now at Kaiser. Coach Woody Blevins, he's awesome help. I read one of his articles online. I reached out to him a few other questions, and he got right back to me. Like I said, Coach Zach Williams at ACU, huge help, big quarters guy. Me and him sat down last year right around when COVID started and went through the whole coverage playbook they have, and he was a huge help. A lot of the things I teach, the verbiage I use is actually from Coach Williams. And then, like I said, Coach Alexander, who's now the DC at Mesquite. So,
yeah,
a couple things.
I know Coach Blevins. Coach Blevins is a really good guy in general. Fantastic. I've had him talk special teams with me before. He is him and his brother are both just fantastic guys.
I have to meet his brother. His brother's down south, not too far, probably 2-3 hours away from me in western New Mexico. I have to meet him.
Like they're both just fantastic human beings. I love both of them. They're great guys, and they've been nothing but helpful for me. So and then before I rudely interrupted, I think you were moving on to your books, Coach.
Yeah. So my cousin, we did our family, we did like, I'm trying to, what is it called now? The Secret Santa. We did a Secret Santa one year for Christmas, and my cousin bought me this book, Season of Life. And I read that, and I've never been really a big reader, but I do, when I do read, it's about football. But this Season of Life literally changed my life. It changed the way I think about life. Changed the way I think about people and relationships. And so I highly recommend reading that book. And then Above the Line by Urban Meyer. Great. I never thought culture was so important until I read that book. You know, as a young coach, you want to think more X's and O's and scheme and stuff like that, but really, really comes down to culture, you know. And I had a slide earlier. To me, culture is everything. You know, this was my About Me page. A little bit of background about Cleveland High School is we've had an 84% winning percentage the last 10 years, 4-time state championship, back-to-back. We've made it 3 times in the last 4 years. So I really do believe it's because of the culture we have and the way that Coach Ride and our staff has built it. It's been awesome. So to me, culture is everything.
Okay. And then I think where we had scheduled to kind of move on from there is kind of, why you like quarters. You kind of mentioned there it's kind of a simplified teach for you and suits your kids a little bit better. Is there anything else you want to kind of get a little bit more in depth there? I see you put some stuff on your screen for that.
Yeah. So the reason why we like it is the days of having big physical corners, we don't have a lot of those guys walking through our doors. We have a lot of shorter, skinnier dudes. Our best corner this year, I don't even know how much he weighed. Maybe 160. Like, it wasn't that much. Kind of a shorter kid, but he was quick and fast. And our biggest thing is the corner has to be able to defeat the post and go of number one. Okay, so we have a lot of kids that can do that. They can run. And then our safeties, I like a little bit bigger safeties so they can run the alley. Yeah. And so that's usually how we pay. Is he a bigger body? We usually put at safety. I like to have smart safeties. And I actually have a clip here in a little bit showing just how nice it is to have intelligent kids that are a little bit of football savvy. But not shorter, but the lighter guys, they typically play corner, and then the bigger guys, the guys that have a little bit more football savviness, play safety for us because we want them to be able to be part of the run game. Yeah. And then the underneath defenders, like I said, we played that man match cover 2. And it was a lot of if-then statements teaching. If number 2 goes this way, then you got to go out that way. 2 goes out, then you got to go underneath 1. And they're still trying to defend the run, first. Because if you can't defend the run, you're not going to be able to win anything. They're not going to have to throw. They're just going to keep running the ball, So it was a lot of that. And so with the quarters coverage, I know it's like voodoo to say now, but it's a lot of kind of run to your spot and look for crossers type thing, and they can do that. They can do that. They can read run, read pass, kind of bump number 2 on their way to the curl and look inside for some crossers, And then it translates the way we teach it, 2x2, it's similar rules to our 3x1 stuff. Like Coach Alexander says, if you can count to 3, you can play. And so, I tell the kids that, and they're like, okay, I can do it.
You're not wrong, Coach. It is quite simpler. A simplified quarters is a lot better than trying to, okay, what did 2 do? Where did this go? And yeah, I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I kind of see here you're kind of attacked in a variety of ways. I mean, you've got RPOs listed there. How prevalent is that in, like, RPOs aren't as prevalent, at least in the part of Ohio I am in. There are teams, obviously, who run RPOs and run them well in our state. But I say all the time, like, compared to maybe the southern part of this country, especially like Texas, they're not nearly as prevalent. How prevalent are RPOs in New Mexico?
It's so, 1 week we play a 2 tight end set. The next week we're playing, wing tee, and then we're getting some 10 personnel, RPO stuff. So it varies, honestly, week to week. I'm actually impressed. New Mexico is probably more modern football than you would think. It's a lot of 10 personnel. This year, it was almost all 11 personnel. All right. Everybody plays with that H-back now, which if I was an offensive coordinator, I'd be doing the same thing. Yeah. I think that's the hardest set to defend. Is those H-back, the 11 personnel. If that kid can split out, and then you have what we call ace, which is 2x2. I know in Texas, ace to them is with the 2 tight ends. For us, what we call ace is 2 receivers on each side, 2 speed receivers. But yes, we did get attack RPOs, and they were widening up those 2 guys, and with a press corner, he's pretty easy. They know where to block him. He's the most dangerous. It's pretty easy to identify, and they were just attacking us with space. But the biggest thing was probably the horizontal RPO, because they were riding it out and getting that backer, who's part of the run fit, to suck up just a little bit. Yeah. And then they would replace him on the hash, which I put second there as our hash throws. We were getting attacked on the hash, which is the easiest throw for a high school player. Yeah. A lot of shallow mesh concepts that we were getting in recent years. And then, when we played that man match, our linebackers were in a trail position and quarterback flush was killing us. We didn't have any guys looking. And in high school football, I don't think you have guys reading 1, 2, 3, 4 check down. I think they're reading 1, maybe 2, and then they're booking it, and we had guys turned around trailing routes, looking perfect on 7-on-7, but then when you get down to the game, they're rushing for, they're getting 10 yards on a 3rd and 7. It's really frustrating.
Well, I agree. Your reads at this level are a lot less than they are in, say, college or the NFL. Now, like some bigger schools who are one way and have really experienced offenses, and you're in the offense all the time, yes, you'll get to that multiple reads thing, but offensive lines aren't what they are in college or the NFL. And we're still limited on time. We just are, and that's where I think that's why I think RPOs are taking over more, because there's the pre-snap and the post-snap. I don't have to, as I do all this multiple reads. It's okay. Can I throw this here? No. Okay, now I can read here and go from there.
Yep. Especially the vertical RPO when they're reading the boundary safety. Man, that keeps me up at night. Like, that really was the game changer. We lost in the state championship in 2018, and they got us on a boundary RPO. We call it the bang 8, the glance route, and you practice it all week in practice, and it's still frustrating when you can't, they hit it. They do such a good job of reading it and making you wrong no matter what you do.
Well, again, they're also 16 and 17-year-old kids, so they're not
exactly.
they're not getting paid to do this. It's well, most high schools are not getting paid to do this. I'll rephrase that statement. But again, they're 16, 17-year-old kids that are going to make mistakes. It's how well you can just prepare them and help reduce those mistakes.
And I think the best way to learn it is through mistakes. So I actually put a lot. I'm not going to pretend like we're perfect. We make a lot of mistakes. Even though we've won so many games, we try to improve every single year.
Yeah.
So here's some film. This is actually in 2016, before I was the secondary coach. This was when I was a freshman coach at the time. But here's that hash throw I was talking about.
Yeah.
The kid's not in a bad trail position, but they're just attacking us right in the middle of the field. The safety's doing a good job playing his half, but they're just attacking the zone.
Yeah.
And here's our play with quarters. I try to find similar plays to that, but here's our quarters, trying to just replace the outside backer. Our kid's able to drive on the 2 vertical right there, and we're able to pick that off on the goal line. So similar concept, similar offensive concept. The way that quarters matches up to it is a lot better.
Yeah.
This route is hard to defend. When 1 goes underneath 2, we call that a homer concept, but it's just a switch. I think people call that scissors.
Yeah.
It's hard to defend when you're pressing the corner and you're playing cover 2 like that, because he can't see that number 2 at that point. And so now we have 2 guys running with the post and nobody on the smash concept, on the corner route. With quarters, we're able to play with a lot more depth, and we're getting the same concept here. This is in the playoffs. This is when we kind of made the change to quarters full time. And it's going to be down here at the bottom of the screen. Corner has a lot more depth. We're able to switch that off. Yeah. We're able to get a huge sack at the end of the game.
Good. Yeah, it allows for better communication, because so the prior way, you need better safety play and better safety vision.
You have to play it so deep, but then, you don't want your safeties 20 yards deep. Here's another thing. Teams were blocking out on the corner, blocking down on the outside backer, and there's just that huge alley for them to run in. We were getting tons of that. With quarters, let's see. There we go. The number 2 blocks, the safety triggers. He doesn't have to get to his half field depth. We're able to get a tackle for loss on outside zone play. So it's funny how things, versus cover 2 and then versus quarters, how it works out for us. What we were doing versus 3-by-1 is we were manning up number 1 and playing our cover 2 concept versus 2 and 3.
Yeah,
it's very popular.
Yeah, the old TCU base adjustment. That's like anybody that learns the 4-2-5 and learns I'll phrase that, the TCU 4-2-5. That's the base trips adjustment. They're special and they're solo. Like those are the 2. Here's point A, point B before you get to anything else fits.
Exactly. And I mean, it was great for us. There's definitely some advantages to that coverage. But here's my theory. Everybody's like, well, nobody throws it to the number 1 receiver. And I'm like, I mean, you're right. We don't see that a whole lot. It is a hard throw for the quarterback. But if nobody throws it to him, why are you manning him up and turning your back to the ball? You know what I mean? Yeah. And so that's what happened. Teams were attacking. They were just running this kid in and taking advantage of all this green grass out here.
Yeah.
Which is a special beater. That beats that coverage. So when we play quarters to it, we play that corner off, and he's playing his, midpoint between 1 and 2. Same concept, and now he's sitting on the smash route.
Yeah.
So there's definitely advantages. There's advantages to both, but we see that the benefits of dropping that corner off into a deep third or quarter, however you want to call it, is a little bit more advantageous for us. Here's an example in this year. If we were manning up number 1, we don't pick off this tip ball. So I see the value. I see why coaches say nobody throws it to number 1, so let's just lock them up. But to me, if nobody's throwing it to him, let's not turn our back. Let's be able to make a play on the ball. And I noticed we created more takeaways playing quarters, because our kids were able to see the ball being thrown. I believe in INTs are you pick off either bad balls or tip balls, or maybe late throws. That's what we're looking for. And when you're not looking, you don't get to take advantage of those. So here's an example of a tip ball. Oh, and it's a great play by the corner. But if his back was turned, we're not making that play.
Yeah. Now speaking of tip ball, and this is something I'll throw in here, is how much do you work on like tip drill or reacting to plays like that? Because that's always like, it's a freak thing that's going to happen, but at the same time, how much do you want to prep for it in case it does?
To be honest, we don't really rep a tip ball drill a whole lot, actually at all. If we do we did it one time this year. We call it Tennessee hash. And we put the safety, in the middle of the field, and we have two receivers running at him, and he has to read the quarterback's eyes. And what we did just this year is, let's say I threw the ball to this kid here. I had this receiver sprint to that side and tried to have the safety tip him the ball. We kind of just made it up as we went there just to see if we could do it. But no, I've seen drills where people are like tipping the ball up and the last guy catches it. And I think kids, it's kind of a weird thing, but kids, if they can catch, they can catch. If they can't catch, they can't catch. You can work as much as you can, but some kids are just natural,
Well, that's when I talked to Robert Trout, he used to be the DC at James Madison and a bunch of Arkansas, a bunch of places. He talked about that's one of the things he looks for in his DBs is just natural ball skills. Like he'll work a lot of stuff with the ball and do all that and that. But he talks about like. Because he coached in the NFL for a while for the Giants and the Browns as well, and he'd ask like he'd ask a lot of these like college DBs like, what else did you play? He's like, and a lot of them would answer, well, I can't catch, so they put me at DB, and that was like a red flag for him. That it seriously was, because that tells him you don't have ball skills. But when they say, oh, I played receiver in high school or whatever, okay, because he said the same thing about like if they said running back, like. That was a red flag. So you just get caught tosses all day long. That's it. Okay.
Yeah. You can't snatch.
But you're not going up here and doing this. And like, okay, that made sense to me. Like, that's that. Yeah. As an NFL DB coach, I would want that too. I would want somebody who has ball skills. Like
it is nice when they do have those natural ball skills.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about them. Now we do work ball drills. We just don't necessarily work tip or anything like that.
Yeah.
We really do emphasize high pointing. That's one of the biggest things, high point. And that's something that I think you can teach. Yeah. I think you can teach a kid how to go up. And there is some natural ability there, but I think they have to see it in practice a few times for them to be able to do it and feel comfortable doing it in the game. Because what a lot of kids do is they jump, but then they leave their hand down there. Yeah. Like, what are you doing? You should just stay on the ground.
Or the first couple, they just mistime it so badly because they're just not because it's always they're the better athlete. They'll just get there, and then once you get to high school, it changes a little bit, and so
exactly. We have a safety. He just graduated this year, 3-year starter. He started as a sophomore. He had I think 7 or 8 interceptions his sophomore year. Just a natural ball skill. I remember watching when he was little. Dude can catch, and he's 6 years old. I'm like, this kid's impressive. And so he ended up being really good for us for 3 years. He's going to the University of San Diego this year.
Good for him.
On scholarship. So we had a couple players be able to go D1, and I'll show you when they pop up on film. I'll tell you which ones they are.
Yeah.
But yeah, the natural ball skill is it makes it a lot easier to coach for sure. Another thing, like I said, when you man up that number one, we teach the man turn. I think it's important to be able to run, get in phase, lock, and lean. But this back shoulder throw has been a big issue for us, and the kid's not in bad coverage. Right there, he's in phase. He's about to look. And I don't think that's even a back shoulder. I think it's a bad ball, and I don't think we're able to take advantage of bad balls. Like I said, I want to pick off bad balls. And so that's why I really do like the zone turn, having our back to the sideline and be able to see that.
Okay.
Which we have on film here later on. The kid at the top of the screen, you could tell he kind of wants the man turn, and then he flips his hips the other way.
Yeah.
And we're just in better position to play the ball.
Now, speaking of this, and you probably have it somewhere later in here, because I put it in when I sent you some stuff, is do you mess with shuffling at all? because I personally love shuffling for that part right there. Is they're already open, and I've had disagreements with people about this, and I really don't care. It's what I personally prefer. But again, I've had kids I've coached DBs, and some of my kids were in shuffle, some were in backpedal. It's also what they're more comfortable in. But do you have a personal preference or something you focus on?
It's funny. I really do. I want them. So I don't like when they, what we call click and bail, where they just get out of there so fast, turn their back to the sideline. I want us to be somewhat squared. But I will show you, I actually have it here in a little bit. I'm okay with them to have kind of like an open stance, kind of like how TCU does it, or to keep your shoulder. I have a kid that backpedals really well. Yeah. And so he likes to stay square. So I really give them the flexibility of what they want to do there. I just know on vertical routes, if we're in a quarters concept, I want us zone turning with that. Because odds are it's not going to be a great ball, and we can come back to it if it's underthrown, or we can, high point it because we're going to be able to see it first. So, yeah, I'm with you. I do like the opening up and being able to run with the verticals like that. It makes it so much easier on our kids.
Oh, yeah.
This kid here, he's a sophomore at this point, too, in his career. We had 2 sophomores starting that year. They both grew up, like I said, one's going to University of San Diego. That kid, he's going to University of New Mexico on scholarship this year as a receiver. So another kid with natural ball skills there. Here's a man turn up top. He's actually, he's not in bad position. He just gets his head turned around late. He's trying to punch his arm through. The receiver does make a great play. But I truly believe if he were to zone turn and see the ball first, I think he's able to bat it down. And so the first game of the year this year, we get a very similar concept. Actually, funny, it's the same kid. And he zone turns with it. We're able to, at least pin the receiver to the sideline there. Not great at the top of the route, but it makes me feel more comfortable that he's able to see the ball being thrown. Instead of being in a trail or trying to get into phase and then trying to play the hands. We can teach as much as you can. We tried, but some kids are just natural at it. Some kids can really get their helmet there. But when you turn them the other way and they're able to see the ball first, it makes it so much easier on those guys.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make it easy for them. I'm not going to let my pride get in the way. No, you have to turn into a man, turn it, get in phase, lock and lean and all that stuff. If it's easier for us to just turn the other way and see the ball being thrown, let's go ahead and do that. And that's what we saw this year.
Okay.
Do you want to go over a little bit of run fits?
Yeah.
For the
let's talk. Okay. Let's talk a little bit run fits and as we start winding toward the end of this. I think I don't know if you listened to our talk with Cody. That was a big topic of our conversation as well, was run fitting out of things, because you mentioned earlier in the podcast, if you can't stop the run in high school football, you're screwed. You can get away with it a little bit more in college, just because depending on who you're playing. If you're playing Mike Leach or Nick Rolovich, and not as much Nick Rolovich, but Mike Leach or that style of offense, you're going to probably let them run the ball a little bit more than you would. But at the same time, vice versa, if you're playing Navy, you're still not stop running. You gotta know your opponent too. Exactly. High school, most teams don't have a quarterback or enough receivers to be lethal enough. They just don't. Or the line. But hell, most of us put our best pure athlete either at quarterback or running back and running the ball with them. So
exactly.
Why not use that to our advantage? So let's talk a little bit of run fits and how you fit some of this out of your quarters here, Coach.
So we like to call the outside backer, the overhang tour. We base out of we call it a 50. We have a defensive coordinator. He still calls it a 50. To me, it's a 3-4. But these overhangs out here, I have us drawn up in a 4-man front because we can do both.
Yeah.
But we call the kid to the back to hold and fold. Yeah. And so he's really sitting there. We try to tell you're out of the run fit, the immediate run fit. The only run you can get is really speed option your way or some type of quarterback counter. Yeah. Which we would prepare for. When a team wants to run their quarterback like that. But we're telling this kid, you're out of the run fit. Your job is to hold and make him give it. The outside backer, the overhang to the other side, we call that the trigger side. If you get any run action, we want you to trigger pretty quick. Not a lot of people do the what Alexander calls the flop read, where they'll read this kid from away from the back.
Yeah.
So if they do, we can prepare for it. But we want this kid, if you get run action, we want you to go. So we call that the crease. We call the safety this when they block or try to crack him. He's going to run the alley, and then the corner has to be the bounce player.
Okay.
And I like naming all this stuff because when you're in practice, you can have that verbiage like fit the alley. You're the bounce there, fit the crease. It's like it's hard to coach like, oh, you have to fit in between the tackle and all that. I just like naming stuff.
Well, that in short keywords are easier to remember. They just are.
Exactly.
Now, you don't want to have 8,000 short keywords, but at the same time, if you have, here's 3 or 4 that you remember, you're in a great position for kids.
And here's an example of us not fitting the bounce. The corner goes inside, which drives me absolutely nuts, and they love to do that.
Yeah.
You have to rep that in practice. I will say, even it's simple as it seems, you need to rep stock blocking and the corner coming up and fitting outside.
Yeah.
This is we gave up an 8-yard touchdown in the semifinal game. And that's the same kid who's going to UNM. He makes a mental error.
Yeah. Would that be a base EDD drill for you? Is stock block the feet and attacking the outside for your corners?
I would say not every day, but we'll probably we do Tuesdays. We'll do some block destruction stuff.
Okay.
As the season goes on, we don't get a lot of indie time, and so we try to hit the base things. But in the fall or in the summer, we will spend a lot more time taking on blocks.
Okay.
Yeah. And then versus 3x1, same thing. We have the crease that's in between the tackle and the number 3 receiver. We have the alley, and then the free safety really is the adjuster, because if this backer fits, if the nickel fits outside of number 2, he's going to make him right and fit inside of him. So we call him the adjuster, and then the corner's still the balance player there. So these are some things lessons learned through the years. Like I said, I've been coaching DBs for 5 years now. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've always understood the divider, but I never thought my kids would understand it. I never taught it. And now I'm thinking back, this year was the first year we sat down and we went over divider. And, I always you're 7x2 outside leverage, and that's where you lined up. And I'm like, gosh dang, if I could go back, I'd slap myself, because I'm doing a disservice for the kids. So we installed dividers, and we spent a lot of time on divider rules this year. And we aligned right, and it makes it so much easier for our kids. You can get a lot out of a formation, depending, especially looking at the receiver splits and stuff. We call our coverage based off receiver splits.
Yeah.
Now, I don't call from the sideline what I want to be in. We let the safeties call it.
Okay.
And they check it based off receiver splits. And then, if the back is a heavy influence this week in the run fit, then run fits also determine it as well. So,
okay.
Understand divider rules. Like I said earlier, corners have to defeat the post and goal of number 1. When they do run a post, flatten it out. And I got that from the Coach Vass TCU podcast. Flatten the post, make it run horizontal, not vertical. Our goal is to be square at 12 to 15 yards. So we want to take our read steps, which I have a few clips on for our read steps. I think what we do is actually pretty cool with our read steps, so I want to show you guys that. But we want to be square from 12 to 15 yards. Lots of depth. This is something I got from Coach Williams from ACU. When the receiver's at 10, we want to be at 15. And when we are at 15, it makes our life so much easier.
Yeah.
You can see on tape. With playing with depth makes our life a lot easier. And when I first started off, I wanted to be a guy that presses and get in their face and take away the easy throw and make them throw over the top. And then when you get beat deep, you're like, gosh dang it, I wish I gave up a little bit of the easy throw there. I'd rather give them 6 yards than 6 points.
Yeah.
And that took a lot of learning from me and swallowing my pride a little bit. I did want to get up in their grill a little bit. But I think when you press, you have to teach it almost every day. And we just didn't have the time to do it every single day. And so I think this works. Playing with depth makes it a lot easier for our guys. reading the speed of the release, and then understand the difference between man and blitz man. You know, when we're bringing a zero pressure, you have to switch it up a little bit with technique, and our kids have to know when we're bringing heat.
Okay.
Safeties, because I do both. I do corners and safeties for our school.
Yeah.
The biggest thing, protect the hash, weave. You know, I don't think I coached the weave enough in recent years. We really stressed it this year, keeping our shoulders square. When you're number 2 shallows, you know, read the quarterback's eyes. You know, you become a curl dig post player. Close, and that's one of the things I love about quarters is based on route combination, you can close the middle of the field. You know, everybody's talking about middle of field close formations or coverages and all this stuff. We play, you know, based off what number 2 is doing, we can close the middle of the field, you know, and we want to do it as much as we can. Same thing, depth. When the receiver's at 10, we want to be at 15, stay square, read the speed of the release. And then safety's got to be smart. You know, they have to be the quarterbacks of the defense. And I spent a lot of time mentally with the safeties, physically with the corners, working out the corners more physically, and then lots of film stuff for the safeties.
Okay. Those are great coaching points, Coach.
Yeah. And here's an example. Just having a smart football players. This is in the state championship this year. They ran this empty set that's pretty hard to defend. It's 2 tight ends, and then they got 3 out. It's really 4-by-1, but with a 2 tight end set. Okay. And so we were kind of rolling down. We were kind of playing a cover 3 look here. We're going to have Rob the corner, you know, close the middle of the field there with if this tight end blocked. But they got us on it. It's 3rd and 16, you know, and they complete that. And that drives you nuts as a secondary coach. But it's funny, earlier this week in the state championship game, we watched a video of Ray Lewis and Ed Reed talking about film study. And Ray Lewis shows an example in the video of how he messed up on the first play of the game or something like that. He saw it a little bit late, and he was late to make the play. And they're talking about it on the sideline, and then he comes back like 3 drives later. He gets the same look.
I've seen that clip. It's a very good understanding clip about film study.
Yeah, I love it. So I showed the guys. I showed them 2 videos. It's mandatory for them to watch. There's a Richard Sherman video out there. I think it's NBC or The Turning Point, and he talks about his film study and things he's learned throughout the years. His communication is key. So that was mandatory for us to watch, and then that Ray Lewis and Ed Reed one. But here's the same play a couple later in the game. He came off on the sideline. He was super upset about it. He's like, Coach, I'm going to pick that one off. Next time I see that set, I know exactly what's going to happen. And he comes back, and he basically runs the route 4. Or this is still the tight set. Or here's let me see. Here it is. That was the same play. I had the multiple angles on. So this is later in the game in the 3rd quarter. Like, he basically runs the route for him, which I love.
I see it.
Yep. And, you know, he beats him to the out route. You know, and that's what I mean by having smart, you know, just savvy football players. But I think that's somewhat, I'm not going to take credit. We coach it, though. You know, we want our guys to be smart. We focus on stuff like that. We spend time, and we want them to be football savvy. So we try to teach as much as possible. Okay. You know, let them be. Like Coach Alexander says, he's like, give them, you know, a little bit of freedom. They're gonna take that and run with it. You know, the more you give them a little bit of freedom.
Yeah. No, I get you 100%. And that's a great example of that Ray Lewis topic of okay, you're not gonna beat me twice.
Exactly.
You're not gonna do the same thing to me twice. And let's be honest, at the high school level, that's what if it's working, we're gonna keep doing it. That's just offensively or defensively. If it is working, we're going to keep doing it. And I think that's a great example of that, Coach.
Yeah.
Let's look at your read steps, Coach.
So what we do, and we try to use some word association. So for the corners, I want their outside foot up, playing like a traditional mod coverage, being able to see the field. We call that a scooch step. And what that means is their outside foot is up. It's the same footwork as a slide step, but it's with their outside foot. So outside foot, scooch has an O in it. That's why we call it a scooch. Okay. You know, and it's 2 to 3 6-inch read steps. And I have a video of it here in a second. But we're reading 2 to 1, you know, and it's a quick inner quarters coverage. We're reading basically is 2 running a wheel. If not, then we're going to be basically man on 1. And then for the safeties, we call it a slide step because their inside foot's up. It's the same type of footwork. It's 2 to 3 6-inch steps, reading 2 to 1 as well.
Okay.
And the 2 ways we do it, I saw these from USA Football. Like we kind of talked about earlier, you like having your guy a little bit more open so they can transition faster. We practice this. I have a senior this year, or he just graduated. He didn't like being square. He liked being more open stance like this, and I was cool with it. As long as we worked back square, I just wanted them to be as much square as possible towards the top of the route. But the read steps, they could be a little bit more open. And then the Panthers do something like this. And this is, I have some kids that like to be square, and scooch or slide this way. But they're 2 to 3, quick 6-inch steps, just kind of stepping off. And so here's 2 of our kids doing it. Here's a safety. He's working a slide step. His inside foot's up. He's just pushing off that front foot and then transition to a pedal. And here's a corner doing it. Here's the scooch step. His outside foot's up and transition to a pedal. Here's an example in game or live. Both our corners are working a slide step here, down here at the bottom. He's just pushing off that front foot. He really never pushed. He really never felt pressured vertical, so he never got into a back pedal, which I'm okay with. He kind of just opens up. He's able to break on the comeback. And then at the top of the screen, they're running a curl. And he's able to break on the curl pretty good. And you can see he's a really good pedaler, so he likes the pedal. So he takes his quick reach steps, and he wants to get into a back pedal as soon as possible.
Yeah, I see it.
Mm-hmm. And then a scooch step. Here's in the state championship game. At the top of the screen, the kid who likes to be a little bit more open stance. See how he kind of opens up. He's probably a little bit too open for me right there.
Yeah.
But he's able to be square at the break, which I like. It's not the best break. I would like for him to plant off his left foot there. But he's able to break on a comeback, for an interception.
Yeah.
So, I think if you're click and bail, the one that I was talking about where you just turn and run, I don't think you're able to make a play on that.
Okay.
So that's our read steps. That's our footwork. We have tried the open stances before. And here's in film. This is not me coaching it. He just kind of resorted back to his old bad habits down here at the bottom of the screen. But he opens up way too quick. He's running. He's already turning and running. And they got in our blind spot. And that's the basis. We don't want receivers in our blind spot. And so that's why I don't really like clicking and bailing and getting out of there so fast. So
I get it. Like everybody's got their personal preference, and there's pros and cons and everything. And if there's cons, you got to work on the cons to help make them less of a con. I get it.
Exactly. So here it is again. This is how I used to teach it. Click and bail. Get out of there. Down here at the bottom of the screen, he's clicking and bailing. They run a comeback at the top of the screen, and he has to turn his whole body around. There you actually prefer them to kind of speed turn because it's faster to get out of the break. And then the last video I have for you is we got beat on a post. Like I said, this is before divider days. See how he's outside the divider there. Really, when the ball's on the far hash, the divider's the opposite hash. So he should be inside leverage there. Like I said, I wasn't coaching it. That's on me. But he's clicking and bailing. And then we're just giving up the middle of the field there. So that's on me. I'm gonna take the blame on that one. You're
good. No, I get it, Coach. You got to adapt to everything. Now, before we go here and before I wrap this up, you obviously mentioned the working the footwork there. You mentioned block destruction as you do some week. What are some other everyday drills you kind of do to help develop your DBs and your quarter stuff?
So every day we do our footwork stuff. We do like the video I just showed you of them stepping off and doing their read steps. We do a lot of simple stuff in our indie time. We really get a lot out of our we do our half line drill. We work all of our coverages. Basically it's 3 on 2, excuse me. We incorporate the the overhangs there. We get a lot out of we try to do as much half line as possible.
Okay.
You know, we can work a couple of individual things. Like we do some scooch drills. You know, this is him versus a vertical route where we just work him zone turning. And then let me see. Yeah, so he's working a scooch. He's getting a vertical, so he's zone turning. So we do that every day. And then versus a post, because I don't want to get beat on a post. So we do that every day.
Yeah.
We just work little things that they're going to see in the game. And then we really do a lot of the half line stuff. A lot of half line. 2, 3, like I said, 3 versus 2. And we get a lot out of those drills. You know, because I think they have to see the big picture stuff, the big picture. Understanding the concept, how things fit off of each other, and things like that.
No, I get you, Coach. No, like it's always interesting to listen. Every DB coach's approach is a little bit different on how they attack practice and develop their kids, and especially, I mean, everybody's got slightly different coverages they run too, so it kind of modifies that. It's always interesting to see how they do that.
Yeah.
Do that. So coaches. If you want to reach out to Coach or talk to Coach, I know this doesn't really come out till like September, October, somewhere there. I know it's really late, but even whether you come back to it later or not, Coach's contact information is on the screen. If you're listening to the audio only version, his contact information is bio and normal. If there's any point you want to go back to listen/watch, the tags are in the bio. And again, make sure you give Coach a follow on Twitter. Reach out to him. I know he tweets out a lot of quarter stuff himself. I've seen quite a bit of it. Him and Coach Alexander both do. As always, check out the sponsors and affiliates below. Help support the channel. And then that was our episode of Got Down Backer Podcast. Coach, thank you for coming on.